Inevitably, on the journey of entrepreneurship, you will run up against beliefs that limit you. And in this week's episode, my guest helps you reframe limiting beliefs as an actual gift in your journey. Hey, I'm Amanda, and welcome to the Best Damn Coach podcast, where I will teach you how to coach yourself, how to coach your clients, and how to run your coaching business. The number one goal of this show, though, is to help you be the best damn coach you can be so your clients go out and tell the world about you. So, let's do the damn thing. Welcome to the BDC podcast. I'm very stoked to have this week's guest on the show. We met in New York City, I guess, right? That's our point of contact. Or in the movies, they say it's our meet cute, right? When two characters meet in a movie and then they instantly hit it off. And that's how I felt about you. I'm so excited to have Relinde Moors join the show. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was quite a queue in New York City. I feel like we met in Central Park, like walking on, I think it was a Saturday morning or something. And it was just the best walk and the best group of people, women coming together, like a really special morning. Yeah.
It's so funny though. It is very movie-esque. We met in Central Park and the rest goes on. But instantly we had the opportunity to get to know each other. I was very connected to you. We had an opportunity. I think it's so cool when you put a group of female entrepreneurs that are complete strangers together. And it's this instant vulnerability. Not all. I want to preface, it's not that way all the time, but the right group of people that are your kind of kindred spirits, you can go into this level of vulnerability and share that is just, for me, so valuable. And I felt that morning with that group of people. So it was definitely needed on my end too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's well said. That's exactly how I experienced it too. It was really beautiful. Yeah.
Awesome. So we've maintained connection, and the more we got to know each other, I was like, oh, you got to come on the show and share your zone of genius. But I would love for you to share with the listeners who you are and kind of your journey to lead you into what you're doing now.
Okay, so let me keep it short. So my background is in performing arts. So I'm trained as a theater teacher and then a contemporary dancer. I had my own dance company, and that's what I did for about 17 years until I went on, well, basically my life went different. Like my relationship broke like in a really horrible way. I made a new performance that didn't sell. A lot of things happened that I didn't see coming. I went for a holiday to Bali, and that is where I had a change in my life. So I came to Bali and I had all these friends there that were running businesses from their laptops, and they were really doing what they loved, and they had so much freedom. And something in me knew I don't want to keep doing what I'm doing. So I completely changed my life. I had this flow in Bali where within 2 weeks I was asked to teach in a yoga studio, and I had this dream life that just happened. And I decided to stay in a very long version of a short version of a long story, but I decided to stay there for 3 years, and I completely changed around. And for a while, I was actually learning about online business. I was letting go of my dance company. And I feel like I really made a big change in my identity, almost like believing who I was and what I really wanted, letting go of all those things I thought I wanted that were actually not making me happy, and completely shifting that. And that's how my business that I have right now, which is I have an online program for coaches and experts, and I help them build their business. And I also train coaches in a modality around shifting limiting beliefs deep in their subconscious. So that is what started building back then. I didn't know exactly what it would be, but I had a big change of, basically how I saw life and what I wanted and what I did and how I showed up. And for me, that took place 3 years in Bali while teaching yoga, figuring this all out. And right now that is already about 7-8 years ago. And I'm back in the Netherlands, but I'm now having my location independent business and working with clients all over the world. And I feel that I can bring everything that I love together in this one business. So that feels really, really good.
Yeah. So many things that you said just through your story that I want to touch on. The first being, I wonder how many women find themselves in a life they thought they wanted, only to find they don't want it at all. whether it's, business, whether it's relationships, whether, I don't know, insert whatever might be there. I'm curious, was there a single aha moment for you where you decided I have to do something different? Or was it like little breadcrumbs that you were chasing, when you ended up in Bali? Can you reflect a little for us on that?
It was definitely, especially in hindsight, it was breadcrumbs. I remember working with one of the most famous directors in the Netherlands, and I had worked towards that. I was like, oh, I'm working with this woman. And I was in that world and it just felt off. And I looked at her and I was like, I'm going to be her. This is the path that I'm on. I'm going to have my own company. And that was what I was already doing, but this is what I'm building towards. But I looked at her and I'm like, I don't actually want to be her. I felt caged in. I felt in a world where I couldn't fully be myself. And that started to happen. Well, then was the personal a relationship that ended. Then I made this performance, which was amazing. And I had a dancer from Cuba and it was a dream to where I came. I was actually also selected for some kind of important festival. And I was in that festival and I was so unhappy. It just didn't bring me joy anymore. And then when I came to Bali, I remember literally looking at Facebook or something and somebody posting, oh, I'm now in this theater, we're in this festival, and everything that used to be important to me. And I was realizing, oh, that success in that context means a lot. But if I'm here and I'm really listening to what my body wants and what I want to do today and the freedom that I want to feel and how I see myself in 10, 20 years from now, then it doesn't mean anything to be on that stage on this specific thing. And that was something that clicked. And to go into the beliefs, what I already noticed then was there's a fear of really being seen as a failure. If I'm not the choreographer that everybody knew me as and that I thought was my life, then I'm a failure. And that was really hard to confront that one and say, but still, I want to let go of that part. But how do I deal with that? And how do I deal with people looking at me that way, like she gave up or something?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally resonates with me in so many ways. So, let's dive right into beliefs, because one of the things you talked about was identity shift. And I think that it's critical that as entrepreneurs, we acknowledge the importance of stepping into a new identity. And if I think back for me personally, 10 years ago when I was a teacher, I was not dabbling in personal development. I had no idea these words, identity. I wasn't even aware of the term limiting belief. Obviously I had them and I was moving through them, but more so because so much of my life has been involved in athletics. I was taking my learnings from that world and applying it towards achievement. I think sometimes we miss sight and we think that goal setting and having the thing is actually about attaining the goal. And what I've realized through entrepreneurship specifically, it's actually about becoming the identity of the person who is going to achieve that goal well before the goal has even been created. And I think that's a hard thing to wrap your brain around. It's actually about becoming and less about achieving. And I'm sure you experienced that in your journey, but I'm curious around through your story, how you saw your identity shift over time.
Yeah. Wow. Great. I love the way you phrased that. There's so much there. And in that moment, I don't know how much I realized, but for sure there was this identity shift and letting go of the art world. And that I did understand, I want to be free from that because as I said, it didn't feel like something that nurtured me anymore. And I think this is going to answer your question. I remember while I was in Bali, I did a couple of trainings. I did trainings, working with these limiting beliefs, and I did some yoga trainings. I remember being in one yoga training. And at that time already, I was, I had this, I'm a theater teacher, I'm a dancer, I'm a choreographer, I'm a certified Qigong teacher, and I'm a yoga trainer. And I was like, who am I? What is this? But I knew somewhere there's actually only one thing that I do, because I feel like when I make a performance or when I teach a theater class, and it doesn't even matter if it's kids or adults or professionals, and when I teach yoga and when I now teach business, all these things are coming from the same thing. It's actually only one thing, but what is it? And I remember in that yoga training that answer came to me in a meditation where it felt, this is my one thing. That's how it felt for me. This is the one thing that I always do. And people, as you said, put labels on these identities, but actually it's not about these labels, but it's about me being really connected with that one thing and me not caring if that is me making a performance, selling a course, like teaching a retreat. It's all the same thing. And I know that from the inside. So then I can become that and just be that and not care as much in which way or shape or form. Yeah, in which way it takes shape. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, it makes great sense. And I want to map it across to, I think, the tactical part of business is we get lost often in business because we like coaching this client. And then we also like coaching this client and we like doing this thing. And we think sometimes we have to tie it in a pretty bow and say, we are this thing. This is who we serve. And really at the root of it, it doesn't matter the container. Don't get lost in the container. Just keep showing up and doing the work that you know your heart is leaning you towards, because it is, at the end of the day, it's all the same.
Exactly. In the end of the day, it's all the same. And people sometimes want to keep you to it, but also only when I feel like when I broke free from that and I felt that inner space, like I know it's my one thing and it doesn't matter. That's also when it changed how people responded to me, because, as you talk about, I think for also people that I work with, and I remember back then, I was afraid of people's responses. For example, I remember I was in Bali and I was like, oh, in the beginning, I thought I'll start vlogging. I have to do some, I have to get out there, start vlogging. So I started vlogging and me with my little camera on my scooter and I'm like vlogging my day. And the first one, and I put it together and I worked with a coach who like, go do it. And I was so afraid. Okay, I'm going to put it on Facebook. So I put it on Facebook. And I had most fear that from my old world, like the theater people would say something. And then this teacher that was a theater teacher in my theater academy actually left a really long comment saying, Relinde, this angle that you filmed it in wasn't so great and you should learn your lines better. And there's too much rambling in this. And he like, really? And I was like, no, was my exact fear. And it triggered me so much. So I deleted the whole post and I was like, no, did you see? I can't do this. But I also knew already at that time, wait a minute, that is because I'm still so afraid of this and I have all these beliefs coming up right now. If I shift that, and that's what I did, if I shift that, whatever people say, it doesn't matter so much anymore. I can move through it and I can show up as this different person. And over time, people actually started to come to me and be like, what is it that you do? And some people became clients and some people were in my courses. So that's how I saw when I changed that from the inside out, also how people respond. Either it doesn't matter so much or they're actually responding differently to what I do.
I mean, it's interesting because when we're just starting out in business, we forget that everyone started from ground zero with 0 followers, 0 content, 0 connection, 0 money. And 0 confidence sometimes and belief in ourselves. And it's through those actions, right, that you took and the feedback that you're gifted the choice of, do I keep going and do I work on myself to grow something that's deep in my heart? Or do I turn around and quit and say, this is not for me? And unfortunately, you and I both know there are many that choose to quit and say, I'm going to take the safer route. And there are, so many that we both get to support that say, I'm here for it. I'm ready. And it's going to take me understanding what beliefs I have that are limiting me in order to step, more into who it is that I want to become.
Yeah.
So I'd love to dive into like the discussion around limiting beliefs, because I know that's a passion for you. And I would feel confident to know that if you are a listener of this show, you're familiar with the notion of limiting beliefs, right? We have beliefs, some limit us, some propel us. I'm curious though, do you have like a different perspective around limiting beliefs or a different working definition that you like to chat about?
Yeah. So what I've come to understand that these beliefs really, they are like programmed in the subconscious and they need to be validated in the world. So I really see it as constantly mirroring. My inner world is getting mirrored in the outside world. So everything is a reflection. So when I work also with clients and with myself, with clients right now, I hear them speak and I'm like constantly hearing the limiting beliefs that are actually underneath it. And they're often not even that obvious. Sometimes they're really obvious, but they're not that obvious. Actually, very often people think they're the truth. The ones that we think, oh yeah, of course, that's how it is, are the most tricky ones because we think they're the truth. And then when you go to those beliefs, they have some really good reasons, or let's say the subconscious has some really good reasons to hold on to them. So it's not only the belief, but then there's all these things around it that keep them in place and that keep us safe and that keep us, often safe and loved and protected and all those good things that we don't want to lose and that we really don't have to lose, but that is why they stay. So this is the way I use it with everything that's going on. Just like I just said, I responded in a certain way to this post of my theater teacher, or this thing happened. It was only because there was a program running. And now when I or one of my clients, when we run into a limiting belief or we detect it in this way, we see it like, okay, great, this is amazing. And I literally often say, never waste a good trigger. That's great. We have a trigger here. A belief came to the surface. Let's get deeper into it and let's get into that state of a slower brainwave and let's get into the subconscious mind where we can actually truly shift it and release all those reasons that the belief has to stay in place.
I always love the analogy that I give. It's like if your life represented a fishbowl filled with sand, and people and things, culture, environment, guardians, parents, throughout their life, they've been bearing these ping pong balls in the sand, right? Which represent belief systems that we've either adopted as true for ourselves or not. And when you accept the growth journey or a personal development journey, you're like shaking the fishbowl. Like you're intentionally opening yourself up to shaking the bowl so that whoop, like plop, one by one, these ping pong balls rise to the surface. And the practice then is acknowledging or becoming aware then when those ping pong balls rise to the surface, so you can go in and retrieve them and remove them, or maybe not, depending on, what you decide. But I love that visual to help clients realize that we're constantly shaking the container, the environment, and whether or not you choose to accept, to move on and acknowledge it. That's where the work is to become aware of when the opportunity. But I love that you said never waste a good trigger. And that's the visual that came to mind right away.
Yeah, I love that. I love that vision. No, absolutely. Yeah, those both popping up. And sometimes I have to apologize because I forget. People like, oh, and then I had this, this belief, and I actually believe I'm not good. I'm like, great. But we start to talk about it in that way. It's like, yay, we got one. Okay, that means it's popped up, like you said, with those balls, and we can actually really make a lasting shift and change in it. Yeah.
Well, what's your sweet sauce, or what is maybe a tangible way that we can become more aware of when those triggers surface? And then what do we do next? Especially because the audience listening are coaches, entrepreneurs, practitioners of some sort. So we're constantly working with people, right? And I believe, how we coach ourselves and how far we're willing to take ourselves and constantly self-coach is going to be the depth for which we can serve our clients. So if we're not doing this work on ourselves, then we're not able to take our clients to the highest possible peak as well. So what's your take on tangible action for that?
Great question. I would say, first of all, of course, become aware of those beliefs. And how can we take that a step further? The moment you have a trigger, let's say there's a trigger, there's something happening. It can be, I'm doing a launch and it's not going as I want, or I'm working with a client and they're not happy, or like anything that is triggering. I like to close my eyes and be for a moment, just breathe. So just to be a little bit calmer state, to go deeper in the subconscious mind, and then ask, what is this teaching me? What is this showing me? And not as this actually wants to teach you that, but more what is coming up for me. So let me go back to my example with the theater teacher. What was he showing me? I think, again, I'm a failure. It's not safe to put myself out there. I'm going to be criticized. That was what he was doing. So I actually know most probably, or that is what I was experiencing. So most probably those are beliefs that are already active in me. It wasn't him, that was already there because the response was so big. So then it's about really being honest and writing those down. Sometimes I like to journal. And if there's things coming up, like what could be that is happening, something, if I hear somebody say, I don't know, I talked to somebody today and she said, yeah, it just hasn't been the right time to sell that because first it was only two friends and then it wasn't the right season. You know, I already know that there's I have to be perfect before I can sell it, or it's not the right time. It's never going to be the right time, or something like that literally will be the belief. So to uncover the belief, sometimes you hear yourself saying things and like, oh, literally, I am believing that I am not ready, or that it's not the right time, or that I should be further ahead, or that it's not safe to do this thing. And that is literally the belief. And to just write that down and see it and really realize this is not the truth. Even the beliefs that you really think are the truth. My clients will never pay this rate, like whatever it is, look at it and celebrate it. You're like, okay, uncover the ping pong ball, like you said. And then really close your eyes again and really think, what would be a really empowering belief? What would be a belief that would make this journey so much easier, that would get me to this other side? Which one would bring all of me on board in order to get to where I want to be? And to write that one down, and I like to do like a little ritual to then get rid of that limiting one. Maybe you want to save them for a full moon ritual and like burn them, or you want to just shred it to pieces and be like, thank you. You really served me in some way. I'm sure I'm going to let you go. And I'm going to really choose this other thought as this other belief.
Mm. I love that you said one thing that I want to highlight too is when you're reframing the new belief, to make sure that all of you is on board with that belief, because I do think that's an error made. And I will point out to kind of the trendiness of affirmations. There's so many affirmations offered out there, but if your unconscious mind does not believe the affirmation to be true and certain for you, then you don't have all of you on board. And there's still this lingering piece of you or part of you that's maybe like, like there's some doubt. And I think it's really critical that you listen to your body. And when you're finding that new belief that you are totally on board, that it feels true. And it may not be where you want to be fully. I always use like body image as a great example. Like, if you hate your body right now, the new belief that you may want is, I love my body, and you may not be there yet. So like, what's a transition that will eventually get me all on board to that future belief?
Yes, exactly. Like just a step in between. Another thing that I like to do, so I usually talk about there's a number of reasons why this belief is staying in place. Fears, first of all, and I'll talk about like how to find them. Fears, gifts, the origin of the belief, like where did it come from? Who taught you this? And emotions, certain emotions that can be stuck to it. It's a little bit too much to go into everything, but right now, but the fears and the gifts is a really great start. So when you have that limiting belief, let's say I have my limiting belief, I'm not good enough. And the empowering belief is I'm perfect just the way I am. And then if you look at the fears and the gifts, there's going to be fears around a positive belief, actually. So when I think of I'm perfect just the way I am, I can ask myself, what could go wrong if I always believe that I'm perfect just the way I am? What could be bad about that? And those would be fears. It's like, oh, maybe I'm arrogant. Maybe people don't like me anymore when I do that. Maybe I stop learning, maybe I'm not motivated to do anything. The subconscious is thinking, oh, because I believe that I'm not good enough, I am not arrogant and like I don't have these things, but it will happen when I have the positive belief. So literally saying, oh, I can be perfect just the way I am without people finding me arrogant and without being unloved and without, losing my motivation to do anything. That can already be really helpful for the subconscious to accept that belief a little bit more. And then the other way around, the gifts would be, oh, this limiting belief, I am not good enough. What good has that brought me? How has that been a good thing? I am not good enough maybe has helped me, again, to be motivated. I'm like, always want to be better. I'm open to learn. I am curious. It has made me humble. I don't know, things that are actually really nice. And then telling the subconscious, you know what, I can be perfect just the way I am, and I can still be open. And I can still be learning and can still be humble. And that can ease the subconscious mind into like, oh, okay, if I can have it that way, then I may be ready to accept it a little more.
Yeah, those are so good. Such great, especially the latter. I think that that's a critical added value that you mentioned in there. It's to understand too, what got us to here may not be what we need to get us to there. And it was so valuable to help us become who we are now. And now we're ready and willing to maybe move through that belief system or let it go. So good. So good.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I just want to tap into one thing that I know, if you could give us a little nugget and speak to something that I've seen a lot of in your content and sharing, is just the body piece and how connected. And you even mentioned here, and I know you come from a dance background, and so that's really important to you. And I watch you do, yoga and all those important pieces, because I'm a person that I super connect to my body in a means of athleticism and strength and endurance. And yet for me, entrepreneurship has helped me connect to listening to my body in a different way and tapping into, I would call it somatic intuition, or my body's intuition, that I was probably ignoring a lot because I was like, just push through, just go. So can you just touch a little bit on how the body plays a role in limiting beliefs?
Yes. Well, limiting beliefs can be literally in a certain body part. Just like if you see everything is energy, the body is also energy, and the body can store the belief, it can store the emotion around it. If you ask somebody, oh, where do you feel that certain blockage, or where do you feel this when we talk about this? People will point to a direction and say, oh, I feel it in my throat. Like I can't speak it, or I feel this really in my heart, or my belly just like cringes. And this is literally where information is stored. So this is a paradigm actually more like a Chinese medicine paradigm from Qigong, where they say everything is energy, and energy is either flowing or it is stuck. And if it is stuck, it causes disease in some way or form. Same in your business, by the way. Like if there is energy stuck, we need to get it flowing. So a limiting belief is also a form of stuck energy. It's a mental blockage. It's a stuck energy. And that will represent somewhere in the body. So when we can give it attention, and this is exactly what you said, like with the somatics, it's not as much I power through, it is going there. So for example, I ask myself or my clients, where do I feel this? And let's say I feel it like in my heart area. And what I will do is like literally just close my eyes again and bring my hands there and meet it. Just meet that area and just be with it. Don't think it, don't conceptualize it. It's just literally being with it and see it, because that part is going to release on some level. It's going to make space the moment I meet it. Just like when you meet with a client and you coach and you're just there with them, is the same. Our body parts also want to be seen and met. And then when we're with it and you can give it like, okay, just let it be and just allow it to be and to show what is there, it is going to inevitably change and it's going to transform, and the energy will start to flow like in different ways, because now it's actually having that freedom to be and to allow it to transform. And then you sometimes don't even have to know what the belief is. It's just something will go, and maybe you have an emotional release, or you get really tired, or maybe you get really energetic. Like it can be anything, but it is just a way to alchemize the energy into something new, and it can flow again and restore itself.
So good. I mean, I think this has been a part I never knew I needed in my business when studying, similar lanes. I mean, so many forms of coaching modalities embrace what you just shared, is understanding energy and stuck emotion. And man, how valuable it is. I look at it from a parenting perspective, how valuable it is to know this now as a parent. And so when my kids articulate struggle, then I can ask more questions. And you're probably like me, when people start talking, it's like, sometimes hard to shut the coaching hat off when you just know certain things. Like I was having coffee with an old friend, and she's gone through a lot, and she's like, oh, my right hip pain. And automatically I was like, okay, don't go there. Don't, like, she's not soliciting coaching, but right away, like, oh, there's a belief. And, so it's so interesting to see the body and be open to understanding, what our clients are experiencing, and coach ourselves and under all of these other modalities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What you say is like, it's telling us so much People, back pain or something like in my back. Oh, it has so much to do with support. Can you really be supported? Do you really feel your backbone? Do you support yourself? Do you have your own back? Like all these things. It is in a way so quote unquote obvious, but we're not so used to go and really listen to the body and allow it to give us that feedback really clearly. But it's beautiful to do that more and more.
Well, I'm so grateful that you can share. You have such a soft, empowering energy. And I appreciate it's kind of the yin to my yang because I'm a little higher energy. So it's so great. I notice I just definitely lean into the contrast. So thank you for that. And I would love for you to share with my audience where they can connect with you. And I know you have an opportunity to connect and learn more about limiting beliefs. So go ahead and just share all of those details with us.
Amazing. I shared the link with you, and I have a audio guide, which is an audio guide on how to shift any limiting beliefs, and it perfectly guides you through everything that I talked about. So finding the belief, but then also how to find the fears and the gift and to release them. So it's an audio guide. It's like a meditation. There's a PDF with it to explain some things. It is literally my go-to practice that I do every time I think, oh, that was a trigger. I literally take myself through my process. I take my clients through that. I've had people saying like, I've been years in therapy and I tried all kind of things and it didn't work for me, but this one helped me release it. So that is in that audio guide. And I think it's a beautiful opportunity to just go and dive a little bit deeper into this work.
Awesome. And we'll have that in the show notes, of course. And will you also share where they can find you on Instagram? Because I know you're very active there.
Yes, Instagram is the best place definitely to find me. Is my name, Relinde Moors. That's how you will find me. And come say hi. Let me know that you're there. And if you listen to this podcast, let me know that you listen to it. And I'd love to meet you there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. I know it's so late in your side of the world, so I'm grateful that you would spend the time to share your genius. So thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. It's really beautiful. Thank you.
One of the most important things you will ever do as a coach is ask questions. So I've put together a simple go-to resource that you can have in your back pocket as a coach of 10 powerful questions I believe every coach should know. So go ahead and head on over to amanda-walker.com/questions to grab yours now.